Evening, everybody. That is day two. Day two is in the books. Day two has come to a close. The NFL draft has 1 day left. 4 more rounds left. Rounds 2 and 3 in the books now. And what can we really say about it? I mean, it was a very interesting day. A very polarizing day. I think a lot of people had very strong takes on the decisions made. Obviously, on this show, everything gets filtered through the lens of being a Seahawks fan. And the Seahawks fans definitely seem to have some pretty strong feelings about this day. And there were definitely some fights breaking out in chat. There were definitely a lot of people that didn't like what we did. There were a lot of people who were on board with it. And I think, generally speaking, the main sentiment coming out of Seahawks fans right now is kind of confusion. Because we're trying to figure out what is going on here with this team in 2023. Where are we? And what are we going to do to address these obvious holes, these obvious problems that we have on this roster? Like, what are we going to do about this defensive line? What are we going to do about this linebacker core? What are we going to do about our interior offensive line? Because, I'll go ahead and jump forward a little bit. We have made it through 102 picks in this draft. The Seahawks have had 5 picks come and go, one of which was traded, of course. And the Seahawks did not use a single one of those picks on interior defensive line, linebacker, or interior offensive line. And people are trying to figure out what is going on here. Now, today in particular, I think the confusion really amped up because there were some guys available that could have filled those needs, and we didn't take him. We had the opportunity to take a Keanu Benton at 37. Didn't do it. He ended up going right before our other second-round pick. Had the opportunity to take a John Michael Schmitz twice today. Didn't do it either time. He went shortly after our second pick. Had the opportunity to pick up a guy like a Diane Henley or Trenton Simpson, all the way down in the 3rd round even for those guys. And we didn't do it. So there is a good amount of confusion right now. Ooh, we got the Nwosu GIF playing. Thank you, Doomed Tuber. Appreciate the support. But anyway, I think that people are just kind of confused about what the plan is for this team, for this season. And I kind of have a theory. And I understand that some people are not really going to be fully on board with it. But I can't hate it because in many ways it is the opposite of the way in which the team has messed up in the past. It might be a mistake. We might be making mistakes, but as I said in the video this morning, we're not making the old mistakes. We might be making new ones. Like, you remember that line from Jurassic Park 2, The Lost World? When Hammond says, "I'm not making the same old mistakes again," and then Ian Malcolm says, "No, you're making all new ones." That might be what's going on here. I don't know yet. I don't know. It's way too early to tell, but you can't tell me we're doing the same old mistakes. These are not the old Carroll and Schneider decisions in the draft. There is a clear difference with this approach. In fact, in many ways, it feels like the opposite. This team goes into the draft with Nwosu, Taylor, and Mafe, and to a certain extent, you could say Alton Robinson and Tyreek Smith at edge. And they're like, no, we're going to use our second-round pick on an edge player. We're going to pick our favorite edge player left, Derek Hall. All right, that's not typically what we do here, is it? We typically don't stack up at positions that we have taken care of. We reach for players to fill holes, like I was describing in the video this morning. We make ridiculous reaches. So that's not what was done here. I may have to make another video about this, but Derek Hall was considered to be a second-round pick. Granted, a later second-round pick on most big boards that I saw and on the aggregate. And Zac Charbonnet was considered right on target in the late 2nd round. So you put all this together, and there's no other way to come out of this other than concluding that, yeah, maybe you don't like the picks, but the team is getting fair value. They are not just falling in love with a couple of guys and just tripping all over themselves to make certain picks because, oh, we just like this guy. It doesn't matter that no one else was going to take him until the 5th round. We're going to take him in the 2nd. No, that's not what this is. Derek Hall absolutely would have been taken quickly after our pick if we didn't take him. Same for Zac Charbonnet. So let's take the 3 decisions the Seahawks made today individually. Let's talk about them one by one, starting with the Derek Hall pick. Look, we don't need edge that badly. I've said this many times now. We don't really need edge players that badly. Going into this draft, we had a decent rotation. They were playing well. Now, a couple of them are probably not going to be here much longer. Taylor, Alton Robinson, and Nwosu could all be gone very easily next year. And that's if Nwosu isn't gone next year. I'm sorry, this year, by the way. That's still not outside the realm of possibility. So we do need to think about the short-term future with that position as well, not just the immediate future. So I think if you're taking a look at the edge position, you have to look at it in a more long-term way. But even if you don't do that, how can you possibly hate a team deciding we're just going to go crazy adding pass rushers, pass rush, pass rush, pass rush? I'm sorry, but that is typically what a lot of the most successful teams do. They keep adding pass rushers. They keep adding guys who can get pressure on the quarterback, and they typically have a lot of success. I remember the Giants teams that won 2 Super Bowls with Tom Coughlin. That's what they did. They had great pass rushers. Michael Strahan, O.C. Umenora. Oh, let's go get a Matthias Kiwanuka. Let's go get a Justin Tuck. Let's go get a... They kept adding guys. They never were like, okay, that's enough pass rush. No, let's keep adding more pass rush. Now, granted, if we were going to take an edge player at that spot, I would have preferred B.J. Ojulari. I thought he was a little bit better. But Derek Hall was, in my opinion, a second-round caliber player. Later second round, maybe, but he was worthy of a second-round pick. And he's another guy who's going to be able to hold up against the run. He's another guy who's going to be able to stay on the field all 3 downs. And he's somebody who should be able to make immediate, meaningful contributions because of that versatility. This is also a guy who proved capable of handling zone drops for a 3-4 outside linebacker role. So to all the people out there saying, oh, this is a 4-3 guy, I don't think so. I think this is a guy who can play in a 3-4. So that's the Derek Hall pick. It wasn't my favorite thing we could have done there. It did hurt to see Benton go a little bit later. But I really want to hammer this point home. And it's so hard for us to really understand this right now because we saw how bad our run defense was last year. So there are a lot of people out there looking at that and they're going, wow, our run defense was why we lost so many games last year. Why aren't we addressing our run defense? Why aren't we making these picks to fix our run defense? Why can't we why can't we bring in guys to help with the run? Run defense is just getting devalued in the modern NFL. The guys you take who are supposed to just fix your run defense should typically not be top 40, top 50, top 60 picks. Honestly, I think a lot of those guys, a lot of like those big nose tackles that take up space, a lot of times they end up slipping to like round 4, round 5, round 6, round 7, UDFA, because they only add a limited amount of value because this is a passing league. This is a league where passing teams win. The Chiefs have won 2 Super Bowls in the last 5 years. They play in the AFC title game every year. Who are their running backs? They won the Super Bowl a few years ago, and they didn't have a single player rush for more than 500 yards. I think their leading rusher was Patrick Mahomes. So I just have to conclude that we're not able to look at this in the right way because our run defense was so bad last year. And that's made some people want to strongly overreact and go get a player like a Mozzie Smith at 20. Or I have to admit, I thought that Keanu Benton was a little bit of an overreach at 37. And I get it. But the team, I will say this, and this is what I do like about their decision-making so far, they're not overreacting to that. They're going to address the need eventually. They're going to address the run defense eventually, but they're not going to invest their top picks on it. And I don't know if it's going to work or not. A lot of the appealing nose tackles are gone. A lot of the appealing defensive ends are gone, and I am concerned. I think our defensive line needs some work, not just for run defenders, by the way. It's not just run defense, right? These guys also need to apply pass rush. So I'm hoping that we can bring in some guys tomorrow, and I'm hoping we can bring in some guys maybe later this offseason. But I'm going to continue to say that we need to understand that the team is not overreacting to what happened last year and just thinking, okay, We can't stop the run, therefore we have to throw all our picks at run defense. Like, I personally don't think the Cowboys, even though Mazi Smith is going to be a good player, I think they made a mistake with the Mazi Smith pick because he can only help you against the run. You're basically going to have to take him off the field on passing downs. How is that worth a first-round selection? I don't see it. So that's how I feel about the Derek Hall thing. This is still a passing league, and we're trying to stack up on pass rushers so we can stop the pass. And we're going to find cheaper, more efficient, more cost-efficient ways to stop the run. That's kind of how I feel about it. And I can't argue against it. I don't think it's a bad decision at all. Now, the Charbonnet pick, I don't know. I liked it. I like the player. I've watched a lot of Charbonnet because he's a UCLA guy. I can understand that some people are like, hey, you spent a second-round pick on a running back last year. Why are you doing it this year? But I think people are looking at it the wrong way when they say, oh, we spent a second-round pick on a backup. All right? I think that's disingenuous. There's a huge difference between a backup offensive lineman and a backup running back and a backup wide receiver. Like, how much are they playing? How much are they impacting the game, okay? If we spent a second-round pick on a backup tackle who would probably never play because Cross and Lucas are the starters, yeah, that's bad. But if we spend the second-round pick on a backup who's still going to play at least 20 snaps a game, probably more, because he's such a nice complement to K9, and I do believe he is. He's not a perfect power back, but he does offer a little bit of a power game alternative to K9's more finesse style. And when you look at it like that, can Zac Charbonnet play 20 plays a game, get maybe 10 touches, 12 touches a game, and add second-round value, especially when you know that a guy like K9's probably not going to play in every game, and now you can have Charbonnet out there for maybe 45 snaps in a couple of games that K9 misses? I think so. So, not saying it was my favorite pick. Not saying I love it. But I do like it a lot. I do like the player. I think it fits a clear need. We did need to pay a lot of attention to running back in this draft. Now, the area where I can say the pick falls a little short, there were a lot of really appealing running backs late in this class. Guys like Chris Rodriguez Jr. in the 6th, Roschon Johnson in the 4th. These are guys you could have gotten in later rounds. Even a guy like Zach Evans would have been nice. He's still out there. He's still actually available in this 4th round upcoming. Yeah, you can argue that you could have done better value-wise, but Charbonnet's better than those guys. He's a better running back than Roschon. He's a better running back than Zach Evans. He is clearly the 3rd best running back in this class, I think. You could have done better value-wise, maybe, but that's not necessarily how teams are going to look at it. And at the end of the day, we just needed them to do something good. And I do think this is something that is good. It's not perfect, it's not great, it's not amazing, but it is good. So, I like both picks. I don't love either of them. I think you could have done a little bit better, but I think they're both good. And then we did the trade down. And the way I've landed on the trade down is it depends on how you look at it. I think at the end of the day, I gave the trade down a C. I don't think we won it, and I don't think we lost it. I think that on the old draft value chart, we lost it by a lot. On the Rich Hill chart, we actually won it by a little bit. And according to some of the more modern trade down draft value calculators, we actually won it by a lot. So it depends on your perspective. Right now, it doesn't feel good. We moved down 25 spots for a pick a year down the line. That doesn't feel good. However, a year from now, it's going to feel very different, especially if we get a really good player early tomorrow with that 108 pick. That 108 pick, if we end up getting Adi or even Luke Whippler, I guess. I'm not a huge Whippler fan, but he's just not a scheme fit. I understand a lot of people still like him. Or somebody who we could have taken at 83 and really liked. This is going to feel very different. So I have to come down on some of the people who were panicking today. I think that, just calm down, think it through here, relax. It's not exactly what some people wanted, but it is, I think, a pretty viable slew of decisions. So we got 1 day left. All right. That's my recap. We still have time to make this team better in 2023. But the reality of the situation is I don't think this team is going balls to the wall to make this team a Super Bowl contender in 2023. I just don't. I think that they are instead trying to do the best that they can without financially extending themselves out because of the situation this team finds themselves in, where they have an owner who is probably not going to be here that much longer. I've talked about this at length before. Some people agree with me, some people don't. I don't really care that much. I've said why I feel the way that I feel, and people are either going to buy it or they're not going to buy it. But it seems to me that this team is looking at this and going, okay, we're not going to tank. We're not going to try to just have a couple bad seasons. We're not going to go for the draft. But the current ownership is not, the ownership situation is not going to allow us to go all out to win a Super Bowl right now. But we're not going to roll over. So this is the best thing we can do. Accumulate talent. Forget about our needs. Just field a really bad defensive line next year. Get run over in a lot of these games. And hope you can figure it out on the fly. Hope you can figure it out in day 3 in UDFA. Or don't figure it out. And you're going to lose a lot of games because of it. But you don't have the situation to go all in to actually try to address those needs. You're not in a situation where you can say, okay, we're going to bring in Draymond Jones, but that first year cap hit's going to be like $6 million, $5 million, and then we're going to have more money to spend on this guy and that guy and that guy and that guy. No, you can't do that. So it is a little bit half-cocked, and I don't like things like that. I don't like it when things are half-cocked. But at the same time, if that's the situation, then that's the situation. And we're trying to make the best of a bad situation here. We have an owner that is probably going to be selling the team in a year and a half. So in that situation, I think we're doing the best that we can, which is still not great. But just accumulate talent. Again, I think this was another day where you spent picks on your BPA. Maybe it wasn't everybody's BPA, but it was their BPA. Screw need, screw the defensive line, screw linebacker, screw interior offensive line depth. Take the BPA, figure it out later. All right, I'm going to stream with the Hawks Nest later tonight. We're going to talk about the decisions made today. Hope to see y'all there. Might do some Twitch later, we'll see. Go Hawks.